Cait with a frown. "You really should pay attention to your other lessons." "Is this something Moran taught you?" Cait asked, wondering how she'd missed it. Because for him, she remembered every single thing he'd ever said and never had to be scolded for daydreaming. Her mama's cheeks brightened. "Never mind. You can help me. But first I need to gather some ingredients." Cait leaned an elbow on the counter and set her chin on her hand, her gaze studying the butterfly as it bounced against the clear crystal, trying to escape. Her mother bustled around her, talking to herself as she gathered the items she'd needed for whatever she was about to cook up. "Saffron, alcohol. Vodka should do nicely. Gum arabic for thickening." Cait turned her head to watch her mother bring her conjuring chalice to the counter and straightened. So this was a serious spell. Her attention caught, she followed her mother's motions as she took saffron strands she'd already steeped in boiling water and left to cool, and placed them in the bottom of the chalice. Mama poured in the yellow water, followed by a generous dash of alcohol, and then added a sprinkle of the thickening agent. She stirred the brew with her slender double-edged athame, and then set it aside, her gaze going to the butterfly again. "Here's where I need your help, darling." Another thing she didn't like being called, because her mother only used that endearment when she wanted something, badly. But her curiosity was caught. "What do you want me to do?" "I need the dust from the butterfly's wings." Cait swallowed. "Do I have to pluck the wings?" It was just a bug, but that still seemed unnecessarily cruel. Her mama laughed. "No, silly. The butterfly must live. He's precious." Her head tilted, and a dreamy smile stretched her mouth. "You really should have paid better attention to your bedtime stories. Don't you remember? Psyche was a mortal woman who loved Eros, the god of love. She traveled to the underworld and performed arduous tasks to earn the right to stand among the gods and marry Eros. She became goddess of the butterflies." "That's a story. A myth. There was no Psyche." Her mother's dark brow arched. "Are you so sure? But there is a goddess, Gaia, and she has given you gifts. You mustn't anger her with your stubbornness, or she could take them away." The girl refrained from continuing the argument. She'd never win it because her mother wasn't the most logical person on the planet. She believed the stars determined her fate, that the goddess had a reason for the tragedy they'd endured. A wave of melancholy swept her at the thought of her papa. He'd been so strong and brave, and yet his will and fate hadn't saved him from a tiny bullet. A sigh burst beside her. She glanced up at her mother, caught the edge of sadness in Lorene's soft brown eyes, and shrugged off her own emotion. She was her daddy's girl. He wouldn't like her to get weepy-faced, not when her mama needed her to be strong. "What do you want me to do?" she asked in a gruff voice. "Think about your papa, sweetheart, and put your hand beneath the jar. Let the butterfly brush against your fingers. I need dust from its wings." Cait expelled a breath and did as she was told, raising the edge of the jar, then slipping her hand underneath. She held her fingers still while the butterfly flew around them, his frantic fluttering tickling the tips. "That should be enough." Cait removed her hand and held her fingers to the sunlight streaming through the small kitchen window. Fine yellow particles clung to her skin. Mama held out the chalice. "Swirl the butterfly's scales in the liquid." Cait dipped her fingers into the chalice and swirled, thinking of her papa, of his dark auburn hair, his thick shoulders and chest, his dark uniform and towering height. When tears began to gather, she drew back her hand. "What did we just make, Mama?" "Butterfly's blood, and ink I will use to write a spell." "What kind of spell?" A moment passed. Her mother's lips thinned.